Hey guys, I'm Clint and I write comic books, and I've got working on a script tonight. I really need to wrap up. I've got a deadline that is here, but I want to talk a little bit about comics first, and specifically DC Comics. Some things are changing for them and making things difficult. I don't know. We've seen this coming. Some stuff's going to happen, I'm sure of it, and Rob Liefeld is actually leading the way with some speculation. So we'll see what he says. I did find this interesting, though. I posted this poll earlier on Twitter today, and I asked if you have crowdfunding fatigue. Now, if you haven't been paying attention to Indiegogo lately, that happens to be the place to go to get comics now. And there's a lot of really good comics. Seriously. There's too many good comics from my point of view. Only because there's so many that I really want to buy. There's so many creators that I want to support, and I don't have enough money to support everybody. So it is making it difficult, so that I have to be a little bit more picky and choosy with where I'm going to be spending my money. And I don't know, part of it might just be that there's such a rush all at once. So I am interested to see what you think. So I asked the question, crowdfunding fatigue, where are you at? Need a break? More campaigns, please, or who cares? It's actually pretty close, but it sounds like most people are actually okay with it, or at least enough to have a little bit of a lead there. 46% said that they want more campaigns, please. 34% said I need a break. I think I just need a little break, like just a little bit of spacing out. But I don't know. I'm really living and breathing this stuff, so it might be a little different for me. All right, let's see what Rob Liefeld has to say. Now, there's been a lot of articles coming out about this, especially in light of San Diego Comic-Con. Looking through Rob Liefeld's Twitter, you'll see him say, "Pray for DC Comics." And here we go, must read. Here's a quote, an excerpt. "Faced with a cash-starved corporate master with an unsentimental 'what have you done for me lately' approach to legacy sub-brands. Ouch. That is a problem for DC Comics as AT&T is now taking over." Rob Liefeld also says, "Also, anyone running AT&T, Jim Lee's greatest value is as an artist. His lines sell comics. Get more art out of him, kind of a no-brainer." I don't know if Jim Lee wants to do more art. Maybe he does. I don't know. I'm not sure. Again, I've said it openly for a long time. I believe DC Comics will be licensing in the near very future. I think he meant the very near future. Maybe I'm wrong, but AT&T are a different entity. They have everything they need to plunder for future IP success. I don't know. We'll see. He does post this link to this Forbes article as well. I did take a look at Jim Lee to see what he's saying about any of this. And the truth is he's not really saying anything about it. But this is just maybe a little telling, a little bit of insight. He says, "No one's more bummed than me to hear that the postponing of the launch of Warren Ellis's Wildcats. The numerous scripts Warren has turned in are just fantastic. Trust me on this." Who knows? This could be because of a number of reasons things get delayed. But Jim Lee has to be a little concerned about the future of comics. Outside of this, again, this tweet is it has nothing to do with anything really, but that's all he said about lately, I guess. All right, so let's see exactly. This is that Forbes article that Rob Liefeld was looking at. Where does DC Comics fit in AT&T's vision for Warner Media? That is a great question, and I hadn't considered this with San Diego Comic-Con happening. This is an interesting perspective, really. It says, earlier this month at San Diego Comic-Con, returning attendees noticed a major change on the show's massive exhibit floor. The booth for DC Comics, which had been a massive standalone pavilion in the center of the publisher's area in the center of the hall, was gone. America's oldest and second largest comic book publisher had retreated to the far back corner of the hall, where it was incorporated into a multi-level Warner Media exhibit in the shadow of banks of giant monitors previewing upcoming shows and cast appearances. Now, I did hear that DC Comics was not going to be at San Diego Comic-Con. Did not realize this is how they ended up being there, was sort of stowed away in the corner, out of sight, out of mind. That is really unfortunate, and that says a lot about the industry, man. This is the second biggest publisher in comics. If you think about how insane that is, these are the people that create and they make Batman, Superman, The Flash, Green Lantern. We could go on and on. So many characters that are icons to comics, and not just comics, but American culture, world culture in general. It really is pretty shocking. Okay, and I think this is what it comes down to. Now, this is, I think, important because you'll often hear the argument about culture war and, that come up in comics, and that is a problem. Well, at the end of the day, and a lot of people have said this, I've said this too, it's about making money. And so if they want to make money, what are they going to do? A big business, if they look at comics, it's going to be cold and calculated. It has nothing to do with, being a pet project or anything like that. It can't continue. I realize Marvel is still doing that, and we'll see what happens for them. But right now, DC genuinely looks like things are going to be changing. All right, the article continues. In terms of pure economics, this makes sense. The entire comic publishing business in the U.S., including periodicals, digital end trades, add up to around 1.1 billion according to 2018 estimates by industry analytics. 1.1 billion actually seems kind of like a generally small industry. I wish it was bigger than that, but that's what it is. On a good month, about 35% of the revenue from the direct market goes to DC, along with a chunk of trade book sales for perennial titles like Watchmen, The Dark Knight Returns. You get the idea. They're getting their money in different ways. Okay, so here is where things get interesting. It's not only about how much comics are bringing in, which is relatively not that much. They do have IP, and that is also important, but this is the kicker. There's an ocean of red ink. That's what Forbes is saying. An ocean of red ink. AT&T's debt. Now compare this, okay? You had the comic industry, which the entire industry was like 1.1 billion, and 35% of that's going to DC Comics. Well, AT&T has 85.4 billion, and that's just for the Warner Media acquisition. So their total debt stands at 164 billion. Compare that to the 1.1 billion. I know it seems like an impressive number, but it's really not. It's not a lot of money when you're talking about these kinds of massive corporations and how much money are comics actually bringing in. So this is where companies like AT&T have got to really look at things and figure out how they're going to fix their own financial situation and steady the ship. It's go time. It has so little to do with comics and making stories that they want to make, right? So I would love to see them really do some investing and some repositioning with DC Comics to make it more profitable. But that's not what Rob Liefeld thinks is going to happen. If you were AT&T and you needed some money and you didn't care, this DC Comics hadn't been under you for very long, what would you do? Honestly, what would you do? It makes sense that they would be either selling off intellectual property, farming it out, whatever they're going to do, work with those licenses and that IP, rather than be worried about publishing comic books. This is actually a really good article. The fact that it's coming from Forbes, I feel like it's a kind of an outside view on what is happening in comics. In all of comics media, you'll see people saying everything's fine. I think of that meme with the little dog and the fire or drinking coffee. Everything's fine. Like, don't worry about it. Things are just fine. Well, with an industry as small as comics is, when it's been going through some hard times, regular business people with some business acumen look at it and they can see that there are some serious issues. Like it mentions here, getting rid of Vertigo, the imprint Vertigo, it cut its line significantly down. There's also the cancellation of Mad Magazine, all sorts of stuff that say that people are not buying comics, at least not the way that they have traditionally been purchasing them. So I don't have to tell you, things are changing a lot. It's kind of nice, kind of a little bit of vindication to see that other people are looking at this and seeing it for what it is. And you're not hearing the same kind of lines that you would normally hear from the comics media. So here's another point here, right? Selling logos, t-shirts, things like that. Being able to sell and milk intellectual property that way is actually probably a lot more lucrative than it is making comics. It's more cost effective, I'm sure, too, because you're just making the product. It doesn't take long. You don't need a lot of people to do it. You just slap a t-shirt together, you slap the logo on any kind of product that already exists, and you sell it. You merchandise it, and that is probably worth a lot more money than the comics themselves and selling those books and keeping them up to date. So good article. It was really interesting, and I'm really curious to see how comics go and if any of those titles would actually be licensed out to other people. I can't tell you the day. It doesn't seem really that far away that they're selling licenses off, and we could actually see some kind of popular license that is run through a crowdfunding campaign. I don't know, something owned by DC or Marvel. I don't know how far away that is, but while I looked at, again, crowdfunding, we still see that people are willing to get more comics. And comments that I got here, there were only a few. A lot of people said that shipping was expensive or getting the books was expensive, and it'd be possible for sure to have those prices lower if you're using one of those properties that you're going to be able to make some money and be connected with publishers to get lower pricing. You get the idea. So thank you very much. If you're interested in reading my comics, the best thing that you could do is check out the link in the description below to my Indiegogo campaign. It's for my book called Downcast, and it's about a brother and sister that they mistakenly gain the power of gravity, and they live in a floating city, and they use that power to basically blackmail the city to try and save their father, who is imprisoned. It really is fun. I'm really, really excited for it. We're 52% done with the pages and counting, so you better jump in soon so you don't miss it. So thank you very much, and I will talk to you next time.